Chapter 10. Arthur extended his hand, his fingers trembling so badly they looked like they were vibrating on a separate frequency from the rest of his body. He braced himself for the biting, cryogenic sting of the supercooled metal. Instead, the hull was warm. It felt like pressing his palm against the flank of a massive, resting animal that was running a low-grade fever. A microscopic, electrical tingling transferred from the viscous aluminate shell directly into his skin, racing up his arm and pulling in the base of his skull. Then came the sound. It wasn't a mechanical grinding or the hiss of hydraulics. It was a delicate, metallic tinkling, like a cluster of silver wind chimes colliding in a gentle breeze, originating from just to his right. Arthur turned his head. The seamless teardrop curve of the craft was changing. An opening didn't just slide back or hinge outward, it shimmered into existence. The metal seemed to lose its molecular cohesion, softening into a translucent rippling curtain that held the exact curvature of the hull. The threshold, a perfectly smooth step, formed just a foot above the hangar floor. It was an invitation. Moving with the slow, heavy inevitability of a man submerged in a deep-water dream, Arthur raised his right foot and placed it onto the step. He expected the legendary ontological shock to hit him, that profound, brain-breaking realization that reality was a fragile, localized lie. The sheer, shocking originality of the object should have folded his sanity like a bad poker hand, but the psychic inoculation he'd received from the Delport crater artifact held firm. The itch in his brain flared, acting as a cognitive anchor, holding his fragile human consciousness together as he stepped through the tingling, phase-shifted curtain. He crossed the threshold, and the universe instantly stopped making spatial sense. The interior of the craft was vastly, impossibly larger than its exterior shell permitted. He was standing at the head of a long, sweeping corridor that defied the physical dimensions of the hangar he had just left. It was a masterpiece of non-Euclidean architecture, a physical manifestation of the most guarded, whispered theories of speculative engineering he had spent his life chasing. The walls of the corridor were entirely transparent, made of a material that looked like spun glass but felt as hard as diamond. Beyond the clear bulkheads, a soft nebulous glow pulsed in rhythmic waves. It was the aurora borealis of deeply saturated light, cerulean blues, burning oranges, blinding whites, and sickly luminescent greens. The lights didn't illuminate the corridor so much as they bled into it, catching the reflective sheen off the walls to project dozens of ghostly, shifting reflections of Arthur's own terrified face back at him. It took several agonizing minutes to walk the length of the corridor. It felt like walking down the gullet of a glass serpent. Along the way, he passed large, recessed oval shapes set into the transparent walls. They looked like doorways or portals, but they lacked any hinges or handles or visible means of entry. To his human eyes, they appeared to be merely decorative features, though the deep, humming intuition taking root in his mind suggested they were pathways to places far more terrifying than the next room. Finally, the corridor bloomed outward, depositing him into the core of the machine. It was a massive circular inner sanctum, bathed in a low, twilight blue illumination. Set seamlessly into the sweeping curvature of the far wall were several smooth, form-moulded seats. They looked vaguely human in proportion, but the material was a dark, porous grey that resembled petrified ash. But it was the control interface that brought Arthur to a dead stop. There were no screens, no throttles, no dials or keyboards. Wrapping around the entire forward arc of the sanctum was a long, sweeping panel, covered entirely in complex, interlocking geometry. The shapes seemed to writhe and shift when he didn't look directly at them, glowing with a faint internal heat. Arthur's breath caught in his throat. He stared at the panel. He recognized the foundational mathematics. It was the physical embodiment of the legendary O33 protocol, the highly classified theoretical physics framework whispered about in the darkest circles of the Jason Society. It was the underlying source code of gravity, consciousness, and time itself laid out bare on a control panel. The ship was awake, and the geometry was waiting for him to read it.